Hi friends, my name is krishnaakumalla. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm sorry for the last 4 days I was unable to upload any of the videos because I'm not in station and also not well, so I could not upload any of the videos. So we are left with another two to three illustrations in inventories. I'm going to upload those 3 videos in next couple of days time, and we get into a next chapter called bills. Okay, so without wasting much time, we are going to solve one more illustration from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India foundation material. So let us get into the presentation and understand what sort of problem we are going to resolve it. Okay, guys, let me read the problem first. This is a very important problem, very important and very nice problem, very interesting problem as well. So I'll read the problem. While reading itself, I'll try to explain as much as possible. Then once we get into the solution, I'll explain each transaction. Okay, right. What illustration 10 says is, inventory taking for the year ended 31st March 2020 was completed by 10th April 2020. That means 2020 year end inventory they have taken, and the process of taking the inventory has been completed by 10th of April 2020. The valuation of which showed an inventory figure of 16,75,000 at cost. Please underline this point. They identified the inventory figure as 16,75,000 rupees. What is that price? The price is pertaining to cost, not realizable value. 16,75,000 is a cost as on the completion date. After the end of the accounting year, until the date of completion of inventory. End of the year is when? 31st March 2020. Till the date of completion of inventory. When the completion of inventory is done by 10th April. So that means between 31st March 2020 and 10th April 2020, there could be some transactions would have happened, right? So he is giving those details. So date of completion of inventory taking, sales for the next year were made for 68,750, profit margin being 33.33% on cost. Very important. Simple, guys. After 31st March 2020 and before 10th April 2020, that means within that period, 1st April to 10th April 2020, they made some sales. So that wouldn't have been considered for the inventory valuation purpose. Why? Because when they completed the inventory by 10th April, these goods were already sold, but they were part of stock by end of March. That is the important point which you need to keep in mind. These goods were sold, fine. After 31st March, they sold. But when I take the stock on 10th April, these goods were not there. They were sold. That means what? I need to add back these goods sold to arrive my 31st March closing stock. Why? Because these goods, whatever I sold in current year, were there in the inventory on 31st March 2020. That is the meaning of it. Very beautiful point. Let me repeat again. 31st March 2020 and 10th April 2020. In between these 10 days, they were taking the stock. That time, there were some sales happened in between in these days. These sales happened after 31st March, right? That means what? These whatever goods you sold, they were there in the closing stock as on 31st March 2020. So you need to add back them to the 16,75,000 because 16,75,000 is not inclusive of the goods sold after 31st March 2020 and before 10th April 2020. That is the meaning of it. Number two, there the 16,75,000 he has given as a cost, whereas the sales whatever 68,750 they are referring, That is inclusive of profit margin. Profit margin, how much profit margin is included in that? 33.33%. 33.33% on cost, they said. How do I know the cost? Are you getting my point? See, 68,750 is a realizable value, sale value. Where is the cost? Cost is not given in the problem for 68,750. But profit percentage has been given. But the profit percentage is asking us to calculate on the cost. That is something which we are going to discuss. Next, purchases for the next year included in the inventory amounted to 90,000 rupees at cost, less trade discount at 10%. This is simple point. We already discussed in previous problems as well. 90,000 cost, 10% discount if you remove, 81,000 will be your net purchases. Correct? That is okay. Next, during this period, goods were added to inventory at markup price of 3,000 in respect of sales returns. During this period, in the sense, from 31st March 2020 to 10th April. During that period, goods were added to inventory at the markup price of 3,000 in respect of sales returns. There are sales returns. How much? 3,000. Sales returns we have to consider for, we should consider for our inventory purpose, right? But 3,000 is what? It is inclusive of markup. What is the markup value? Did they give markup? They have not given. But the markup, whatever they have given previously, whatever sales 68,750, there they said very clearly 33.33% is the margin on cost. Same margin you have to take for sales returns also. Are you getting my point? That is the reason why I said this problem is very important. You have to be very, very careful. Anyway, once again, I'm going to explain all these points while explaining the solution. But while reading the problem itself, if you start reading the problem in this notion, you will get to understand, okay, where and all some important points have been given here, and how do I handle these important points? That is very important. Next, after inventory taking, it was found that there was certain very old slow moving items. Super point. Very old slow moving items costing 11,250, which should be taken as 5,250 to ensure disposal to an interested customer. 11,250 worth of slow moving goods. That means they are not moving fast. They are not immediately saleable goods. Since they are not immediately saleable goods, they identified one interested customer who is ready to take it for 5,250. But in inventory, we have considered that as 11,250. So what is how much loss we had here? We are showing 11,250, but actual price is 5,250 only, because the customer is ready to take the goods for 5,250. Realizable value. Realizable value is 5,250. Cost is 11,250. What is our principle? Cost or net realizable value, whichever is less. 11,250 versus 5,250. You cannot take that amount, right? You should have taken 5,250 into account, but they have taken 11,250. So how much you have to reduce now? 6,000 rupees you need to reduce. So that is also an important point. Next, due to heavy flood, certain goods costing 15,500 were received from the supplier beyond the delivery date of customer. Customer has given some delivery date to us, saying that, boss, I need these goods by so and so date. Customer dictated terms to us. I need these goods at so and so date. We agreed. No problem, Mr. Customer. I'm ready to give you the goods by so and so date. But what happened? Supplier sent the goods, but due to floods, we were unable to deliver those goods to the customer as agreed timelines. So what happened, because of which, as a result, the customer refused to take the delivery. Customer said, boss, I have given you the date. You agreed to deliver the goods at so and so date. You did not send me. So I'm not going to take your material because you crossed your deadline. Since you crossed your deadline, I'm not going to take your goods. So what is that he can do? he has to take back those goods from the customer. So, and the net realizable value of those goods were estimated at 12,500. How much we purchased it from the supplier? We purchased these goods from the supplier for 15,500. Since customer said no to this, now the realizable value has come down. It is coming to 12,500. So how much loss we have here? 3,000 rupees loss we have. The 3,000 rupees loss we need to reduce from the inventory. Why? Because that is net realizable value is less than the cost. Hence you need to take the realizable value. Getting my point? Compute the value of inventory for inclusion in the final accounts for the year ended 30th March 2020. Don't you think that it is very, very important point? Important problem, sorry, not point. Right? So let us start preparing the solution. Solution is already there. I'll explain the solution. Okay. Again, let me go through the point by point. Inventory taking for the year ended 31st March 2020 was completed by 10th April, the valuation of which showed an inventory figure of 16 lakhs 75,000. Okay, 16 lakhs 75,000 is the inventory at cost. So, value of the inventory as on 10th April, 16 lakhs 75,000 we have taken into account. Very simple. There is no rocket science. There is no complication to put this point there. Now we are arriving the inventory valuation as on 31st March 2020. Though the inventory physical inventory taking is completed by 10th April, the valuation has to be done by 31st March 2020. We are doing back calculation to arrive the inventory value by 31st March 2020. That is a point you need to keep in mind. So we have taken 16,75,000 into account. Next, what happened? After the end of the accounting year, until the date of completion of inventory taking, sales for the next year were made at 68,750, profit margin being 33.33% on the cost. So sales made during this period, 31st March to 10th April. These sales were there in the stock, whatever goods we sold, these goods sold would have been there in our inventory on 31st March. Because after 31st March we sold, right? So they were there in the 31st March goods, closing stock. So how do I arrive it? Simple. Suppose they have not given the cost. So we need to arrive the cost. So they have given the sale value. So let us assume that cost is equal to 100. We don't know. We are taking that cost as 100. What is the profit margin? Profit margin is 33.33%. That means sales value is how much? 133.33. Very simple. Let us assume cost is 100 because we don't know the cost. He has not given the cost. He has given straight away 68,750 as sale value. So let us take cost as 100, profit margin 33.33, and add these two. You will get the sales value of 133.35. 133.35 is the sales value. At the time the cost was 100. When the sales value is 68,750, what should be the cost? Then what you need to do, 68,750 into 100 divided by 133.35. If you do this, you will get 51,560 rupees as per cost. This is how you need to calculate the cost. So 51,560 is the cost of the goods sold. Cost of the goods sold you need to add back because that should be part of your inventory. So you need to add back. Clear? Next. Purchases for the next year included in the inventory amounted to 90,000 at a costless trade discount 10%. Purchases for the next year included in the inventory amount. Next year purchases, why we need to include in inventory? We should not. Because that is not part of previous year inventory. That is part of current year inventory. So next year inventory has to be reduced from this 16,75,000. But 90,000 we cannot reduce. Why we cannot reduce 90,000? Because trade discount 10%. So 90,000 into 10% discount, trade discount. So how much it will come? 9,000. 9,000 if you take out, it will be 81,000. So 81,000 rupees you need to reduce from the 16,75,000. Getting my point? So 81,000 is reduced. Clear? Next. During this period, goods were added to inventory at the markup price of 3,000 rupees in respect of sales returns. Sales returns happened during this period. During this period, sales returns happened 3,000. This is with markup. You need to arrive the cost, as I said in the beginning. So, what you need to do? 100 divided by 133.33% you need to calculate. Again, let me explain one more time. Cost, we don't know, 100. Profit, 33.33. So, sale value, 133.33. This is the sales value. Sales value is 133.33. Cost is 100. Sales value is 3,000, and what should be the cost? 3,000 into 100 divided by 133.33, you get 2,250 rupees as cost. Why we need to reduce this from the sales returns? What the sales returns are pertaining to the current year, not pertaining to previous year, right? The sales returns are pertaining to current year. That should not be part of my previous year inventory. So I need to reduce that. So I'm reducing the 2,250. Next. After inventory taking, it was found that there were certain very old slow moving items costing 11,250, which should be taken at 5,250 to ensure disposal to an interesting customer. One customer is ready to take slow moving items at 5,250, but the original cost is 11,250. Yeah, cost is 11,250. What is the realizable value? Realizable value is 5,250 only, because nobody is ready to buy those goods. So realizable value has come down. So what is the net loss? So, but you have included 11,250 in our inventory, but it is not the value. How much you are losing here? 11,250 minus 5,250. 6,000 rupees loss you have. So that 6,000 you have to reduce from the 16,75,000. Are you getting my point? Next. Due to heavy flood, certain goods costing 15,500 were received from the supplier beyond the delivery date of customer. As a result, the customer refused to take the delivery, and net realizable value of the goods were estimated at 12,500 as on as on 31st March. So 15,500 worth of goods we purchased, but customer refused to take them because we crossed the deadline. So now, since he refused to take the goods, those goods have come back to our godown. Now it is part of my inventory. But what is the realizable value of that inventory? If the realizable value of the inventory is 15,500, that is already included in 16,75,000. I don't require to be bothered. Whereas the realizable value of this 15,500 is 12,500 only. That means 3,000 worth of value of those goods reduced. So that is a loss for us. So that has to be reduced from our inventory. Why it has to be reduced? Cost is 15,500. Realizable value is 12,500. Cost or realizable value, whichever is less, we have to take. So 12,500 we are supposed to take, but already we have taken 15,500. So 3,000 rupees is the difference. So 3,000 we need to reduce. So if you add and reduce all these things, your closing inventory is going to be 16,34,310. That's all. That's all about this problem. This is a beautiful problem, guys. My suggestion to all of you is, if you do not understand by watching this video for first time, watch this video repeatedly. If you still find any difficulty in understanding, please feel free to comment on my video. I will definitely explain your doubts once I look at your comments. Okay, I hope it makes sense for you, and thank you so much. for watching this video.